This is Jeremy from Thermaltake, and I'm extremely excited to be presenting you with an exciting new video series based on our Thermaltake LCS products. Today, I'm here with expert PC modder and water cooling enthusiast Stuart Tonks. Stuart, how you going today, buddy?
Pretty good. Yourself?
Yeah, very well indeed. So Stuart's been involved in water cooling now for a number of years. Stuart, how did you get started out?
So pretty much in the early years of my life, I've been into PCs quite a bit. Sort of the sort of basic modding. I started off with air cooling, moving on from there, and it's actually the first kit I did buy for water cooling was one of the original Thermaltake ones. So yeah, started off with that. And then I started running the gaming event which I run, which is called GGF LAN Party. So a lot of people see what I do as GGF LAN Party, but I actually do more as in things in the modding scene, and I also do YouTube reviews as well on products. So what got me into sort of more in the modding scene was originally at the LAN Party. I started running it, and I wanted to offer more for when the gamers rocked up instead of just sitting there all day and just gaming along. So I wanted to try and feature some different items, some more attractions. So what I decided to do was I had two PCs on display. I had a budget rig and an extreme rig. So these at the time were fully all of my hardware. And after the first event I had those on, it was actually Thermaltake was the first sponsor that came on board. So then they were actually called the Thermaltake Budget Rig and the Thermaltake Extreme Rig. So this gave the gamers an idea of what to expect. Say they have a budget for $600 or a budget of $2,000. So they could come along and test out each one and say, hey, I'm getting 60 frames on this one, I'm getting 100 frames in this one in the same game, I don't really notice a difference. So it was a good idea to test out. And then it sort of moved to a step further where I started customizing these. So at the early stages it was more about sort of the performance and just sort of the gear inside, but now I think the last event I had, which is now 5 years later on, which was I think a few months ago, I've now had 11 systems on display from various sponsors, quite a few sponsors. Some of them are all custom water cooling, they've been painted, some of them are quite heavily modded. Yep. And that's where sort of has gotten me to where I am now. Yep.
So you've really expanded your breadth definitely. And knowledge of water cooling through that.
Yep.
Really awesome. Well, it's a great pleasure to have you on board with us today, and I'm really excited to be running you guys through at home how to sort of start out with water cooling. We find with a lot of consumers out there, a lot of people have been coming to us and having really big problems sort of figuring out, you know, it looks really hard. It looks like it could be really difficult to put together. Well, we're sort of here to break down that mentality a little bit. You certainly don't need to be a rocket scientist or anything like that to put together a really nice water-cooled system. In this episode, we're just going from the basics. So, to start from square one, what exactly is water cooling?
So water cooling has actually been around for quite a long time now, and the main purpose of water cooling is to remove heat from your critical components. So that'll be your CPU and secondary your GPU. So not everyone goes out to water cool both. Some people mainly do the CPU, or sometimes they just do the GPU and then they do both.
So now that we know what water cooling is, what exactly comprises a water cooling setup?
So with water cooling, you have your 3 to 4 main components. So you have your radiator, your pump, your blocks, which is normally your CPU block and your GPU block, and then you have your reservoir. Now, not every loop needs a reservoir. So if you look over here, you've got your all-in-one unit. So these are your more sort of more streamlined systems. They're more for your budget users, people who aren't out for the most optimal performance, and they still want to move on to a water cooling setup. So these are a closed loop design. There's no need to fill up the loop with liquid. There's no sort of risk of liquid sort of spilling out anywhere. They come sealed, you don't need to maintain them, but the thing is they do not have a reservoir. As you can see with this custom one, we've got a reservoir here. So the coolant in the all-in-one system is actually, it's always housed in the tubes and the radiator itself. So those two comprise together, make up the reservoir. But when you move to a custom setup like this one here, where we've got a reservoir, our pump top, our pump underneath the pump cover, and then you add, say, your GPU block and your fittings, that's where you get your full setup. So aside from those 3 to 4 main components which I just mentioned, water cooling can be broken up into about 3 tiers. So you've got your first tier, which would be your all-in-one setup. So this is one over here from Thermaltake. So this is more for your beginner, someone wanting to move into the slightly more performance, move into the water cooling stage. Then you've got a kit over here from Thermaltake, the Pacific RL240. So this is a kit which is fully custom, but it all comes with everything you need to get this going. So instead of having to jump on the internet, work out what thickness tubing I need, what size reservoir, what type of pump, this comes with everything you need. It comes with the pump all ready to go. It comes with the tubing, the right amount of fittings, and it comes with the CPU block. So they've really done the homework for you. And then you can go to the third tier, where it's pretty much open to you. So you can go out and sort of buy everything you need. You can buy a water block, you can buy a reservoir. There's 4 or 5 different type of reservoirs, there's different CPU blocks, and there's a ton of different fittings, and you've also got different colored fittings. So these ones here are the silver, whereas if you go with more sort of, I wouldn't say this is basic, but a less complex build, you're sort of going to be restricted to a certain size reservoir and a certain size CPU block and certain fittings as well.
Obviously, there's a very wide range of components when it comes to LCS. So, how exactly do you know that everything's going to work? Well, we at Thermaltake have created a TATE LCS certification, and it was created so that we can clearly convey to power users and enthusiasts which components are built and tested to be best compatible under extreme liquid cooling conditions.
Alright, so I've noticed this logo on not only some of the water cooling gear like the water cooling kits over here, but I've also noticed it on some of your newer cases. Why are they starting to put them on cases, and how does the consumer benefit from this?
It's fairly straightforward. It means that product is being built for the ground up to support liquid cooling. That ensures that you get the best performance, compatibility and features first time round. And with that, we conclude our first episode in our TT LCS series. In our next episode, we work out where you fit into LCS and where exactly the best place is to start with liquid cooling. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.